Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Michael Smith, and welcome to the Music and Performing Arts at Shelter Rock page on Facebook Live. Tonight is a special event. Each year, we at Shelter Rock, which is the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock, give out music scholarships. And the music scholarships are in honor of a former music director, Ed Miller. So to raise funds for the scholarship, we have an event each year, which happens live in normal years. And it's a big cabaret event, and our members sing and dance and tell jokes and carry on for the evening, and we raise money. And it's all done under the expert direction of Richard Bach, who's music director for this special event. Well, in COVID times, everything is different. And obviously this year we were unable to do a live cabaret. So on Saturday evening, we had a virtual cabaret, and I hope many of you joined in and enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, you can see it at any time because it's available in multiple platforms to be viewed. You can see it here on Music and Performing Arts at Shelter Rock. You can see it at the UUCSR page on YouTube, or you can see it at uucsr.org, which is our website, and you can find it. So what does that have to do with tonight? Well, as you know, usually these are chats, and we go behind the scenes and we talk to musicians and listen to some clips. Well, when we were putting together this virtual cabaret, one of the groups that we were talking to were the East River Blues Band. One of our members, Ken Hughes, is involved with the band, and he graciously said that they would give a clip for cabaret. And he said actually they had multiple clips, and did we want more than one clip? And because we had so many people step forward, I forget how many acts there were, but there were quite a few acts. We said, well, why don't you just give us one clip because we have a pretty full show. But I was really intrigued by his generous offer. And I thought, wow, maybe we should do a special event just with the East River Blues Band if he really has some other clips. So we talked about it. And he said, yes, indeed, they probably had enough music to put something together. And we kind of left it there. And then Ken, being who he is, and those of you who were with his chat 2 weeks ago know that he's a very interesting and creative guy, came back to me with this idea of maybe they could do something like the history of the blues, a short history of the blues, and just have musical examples, and we could bring the band in if the band was willing, and just have an event on the blues, which to me just sounded great. So that's where we are tonight. We're here with the East River Blues Band and Ken, and we're going to listen to all sorts of different aspects of the blues and kind of get a sense of the trajectory and everything. So I'm really excited for this event, and it's the first time we've done anything really like this. So this all started out as a fundraising event, and we are continuing to raise funds for these musical scholarships. And we want to invite you tonight because this is actually a cabaret bonus event. And there are many ways you can donate, and you can see on your screen there. You can do it through our website. You can call UUCSR. You can do it on PayPal. You can send a check. You can call the finance department. You can call me, and we'll come to your house and take your cash. Any way you want to donate. Every single dollar we raise goes to the scholarships, and I can't say that more clearly. Every single dollar we raise goes directly into the scholarships. So there's no overhead costs, nothing like that. Anything that we raise, we benefit these high school music students. And just briefly, the scholarship was set up for high school graduating seniors who have demonstrated an interest and ability in music to go on to further study. So it's for high school students in Nassau County. If you know of people who might be interested in this scholarship, there's information on our website. There's a whole process, application process, and we actually don't handle it ourselves, but we help administer it. So you might also put the word out to students in Nassau County who are looking to continue in music. And that's especially important in these COVID times because musicians are having a rough time, and it must be difficult for young musicians who are looking to the future, and the business is sort of closed up. So any way we can encourage them, we want to do that. So that's a little bit of background. I'm going to get out of here, and we're going to bring in Ken and the band, and they're going to take you on this path down the blues. And here they are. So, Ken, I'm going to let you introduce the band and everyone. Hi, guys. Thank you for doing this. This is very cool.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks a lot, Stephen. That's very
great.
Generous introduction. I'm hearing a little feedback. I'm hearing myself loop back. I'd like to introduce the band, and I think we're going to get started with a little presentation. We haven't been playing too much, most musicians have been on hiatus, and we didn't play too much, as a band over the past couple of years. But actually, because of the pandemic and because of the way people were isolating, we wound up playing a little bit more recently. So I'd like to introduce the band quickly. So Tom Brumley is the harmonica player in the band. Thank you, Adam. And Tom's going to talk a little bit today about amplifiers and specifically some of his tube amplifiers and amplification, because that was a big part of blues, right? And Bill Acosta is my longtime friend and bass player, and he's going to talk a little bit about the band. And Mark Coppell, all of our good friend, the man behind the drum kit. And so we're the East River Blues Band, and we got a chance to play a little bit more over the past several weeks, because this project was something for us it kind of helped us, spurred us look into some music that we have overlooked in the past. As we figured that we would be able to present a short, very brief history of the blues tonight, and we kind of looked for a few seminal characters that we'd be able to share, right? So we came up with a few. We have a slide maybe Adam can share with you. The blues players like John Lee Sunnyboy Williamson, sometimes he gets overlooked as well. He's a really seminal character in blues history. From the Delta, moved up to Chicago like many of the others. Tom's going to talk a bit about John Lee Sunnyboy Williamson. He's actually the first Sunnyboy. There are two, right? And Mississippi Fred McDowell, another Delta player. And of course, everybody knows maybe the biggest figure, the larger-than-life figure, Muddy Waters. And then from Muddy's band, and also a giant in his own right, Little Walter. And Junior Wells, of course, who was playing beyond Muddy and some of the other guys. He was playing further along with Buddy Guy, and was very successful, actually kind of generous to the other blues people in the community, and Blind Arthur Blake. So these are just a few. We're going to touch on some of the others, but we wouldn't be able to start a blues presentation unless we were going to start maybe with Robert Johnson. So the band and I, we kind of culled Robert Johnson's collection of music, and we were looking for some things that we haven't heard so often. Robert Johnson was born in Hazelhurst in Mississippi in 1911 or thereabouts, right around the same time Muddy was born. Muddy was probably born in 1913, although sometimes it's disputed. He died just at 27, Robert Johnson, only 27 years old, like many others in that 27 club, unfortunately. But by then he had made two trips to Texas, and he had recorded a number of sides, and they were finally compiled into the album King of the Delta Blues, which many young folk and blues enthusiasts picked up in 1961. So he passed away when he was a young man, and didn't really see what an influence he was going to have, all right, in blues music in the decades to come. So without further ado, we're going to present something that we got together and did just recently. The band recorded something called Preachin' Blues, Up Jumped the Devil.
child told me all upside down. Blues tell mama child told me all upside down. Tell them, folks, get it over, just turn it down. Blues is a all down, shake and chill. Blues is a low down, shake and chill. Preach it now. You ain't never had them. I hope you never will.
So preaching blues, not something that everybody really associates, or it's not the first thing you think of when you think of Robert Johnson. But we kind of found that one's kind of a jumping number, and really like the way Mark is brushing away on our electric drum kit down the basement.
Hey,
So,
Ken,
but yeah,
Ken, you said something about Robert Johnson dying when he was 27. So does that make him like the original member of the 27 Club?
yeah. So Tom, you want to share the 27 Club? There's a few members in the 27 Club. The sad club, actually, right?
Yes, musicians that died at 27 years old. No, we don't have to get too deep into that, but people like
We don't have to get too
Cobain,
deep into that, but yeah, Jimi Hendrix,
Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
right, yeah. So if you could, Adam, just cue up the next slide, because we have another piece. This next piece is also, it's a Robert Johnson piece, but I'd like to share a little something. This comes from Robert Palmer's book, Deep Blues. And John Work III is often overlooked when we're talking about blues collection, folk song collection. And Alan Lomax is usually the person people think of. Alan Lomax and John Wesley Work were riding around the Delta in 1941 looking for Robert Johnson. Black men in overalls and floppy hats sitting on chairs or crates on shaded front porches of crossroads gas stations and grocery stores usually answered questions about Robert Johnson and other blues singers with non-committal mumbles. And if pressed, drifted away in sullen 2s and 3s. But once in a while, one would volunteer some information, and Lomax and Work would follow it up. Turns out that John Work III, he was a professor in Fisk University in Tennessee, Nashville, and he was very interested in going down to the Delta to investigate or follow up a year after a fire. There was a fire in a club down in the Delta in the 1930s, and I forget which year, but he was interested in going down there the year following to collect the songs that would have been written about this incident. So 200 people dying in a club was a real tragic event, and he didn't really have any funding. Fisk University didn't give him any money, so he reached out to the Library of Congress and Alan Lomax, and that's how he wound up going down to the Delta to record musicians. And he actually found Muddy Waters. The two song collectors, and this is also from Robert Palmer's book. I continue. The two song collectors didn't know it yet, but someone had served Robert Johnson an ice course, a cool drink of poisoned whiskey. Stories abound, but the stories consistently point to Johnson's ability to attract women. And when loosened with White Lightning whiskey, he had the habit of playing with someone else's wife or girlfriend. Probably it was this kind of behavior that angered someone. And Johnson, according to many different reports, died having been poisoned. So we went and looked through his material, and we found one of his more popular pieces, but it's also a pretty sad piece. He used to play with Johnny Shines, and Johnny Shines told a story later that Robert Johnson was playing "Come On in My Kitchen," and the room was absolutely quiet. It was a juke house, and when Johnny Shine looked up at the crowd, he said, he saw everybody was just crying. They were just quiet. Conversation had completely stopped. So if we can, we're going to cue up "Come On in My Kitchen," Adam.
When the time is coming, it's gonna be slow. You can't make no winner, babe. Let's try some more. You better come on in my kitchen. It's gonna be great. You better come on in my kitchen, because it's gonna be raining, I know.
I don't know if the guys in the band want to say anything about that tune, but we discovered a couple of things about the melody, right? That song "Come On in My Kitchen" is Robert Johnson's take on a song that probably all the blues players down in the Delta knew. It had been a hit by the Mississippi Shakes. The Mississippi Shakes had a song called "Sitting on Top of the World," and it came out on a '78, and people had heard it in juke joints or on jukeboxes, and had borrowed the melody. So Robert Johnson borrowed it really beautifully in "Come On in My Kitchen," right? We're gonna move forward. We have a little bit more about Alan Lomax, actually. So, "Country Blues" and "IB's Troubled" were two recordings that Muddy Waters made when Alan was recording, and found him on the Stovall plantation. And Muddy was put off because Lomax said, this is for a library. So Muddy was kind of expecting, getting recorded might be a big break for him. And Muddy was a really enterprising guy, but he went along with it, and he recorded these songs because Alan was just looking for stuff that he was playing. And then if you listen to Robert Gordon has written a book about Muddy Waters, and apparently Muddy had to write letters to Alan Lomax months later, in a sense saying, where's my money? Because Alan had promised him, I think, $10 a side, or it was $20 a side. Maybe it was 20 total for a couple of recordings. And Muddy didn't know how to write. So he probably got somebody that knew how to write okay, and misspelled a number of things, and they sent the letter up. Anyway, it made its way to Alan Lomax, who months later wound up sending down a check for, I think it was $20 just for the two songs. But what happened was Muddy got that record, and he brought it to the jukebox in the Stovall plantation had a commissary, and in the commissary, you could take your money, your nickels that you were getting paid, and you could turn around and just start spending them in the jukebox that they had installed there, right? But Muddy went and put the record in the jukebox and heard himself singing those songs. And the thing that apparently happened, and that Muddy confirmed years later, was that he just got this feeling like, I can do it. I sound like those artists that I hear on recordings all the time. So this was a really important thing for Muddy Waters, because he could have stayed down there on the Stovall plantation. He had all kinds of gigs worked out with people. He was making his own sour mash. He was hosting parties. He was working labor during the day. He was just incredible force of nature. But he decided to take a risk. He actually went to East St. Louis for a while, but he couldn't make it there. But because he had heard those recordings, he had this notion that, no, definitely I'm going to be able to make it somewhere. So he made his way up to Chicago. he didn't get up to Chicago until the early 1940s. And by then there was a lot of jump blues. It was a different kind of direction. And Muddy's music was a little bit old. But he was able to make an electrified recording of something he recorded for Alan Lomax, the I Can't Be Satisfied recording. And that became a hit on Chess Records. That was Muddy's first hit. So, we played this. And the guys in the band and I, we've been out in Williamsburg a couple of times recently, playing on the street. Good community down there where Tom lives, right?
Yeah, baby.
People coming by with right. People coming by with strollers and stopping with their kids and everything and dancing, and stuff. So we recorded "I Can't Be Satisfied," and we've been doing that for years. Actually, the band's been playing that for a while. So maybe we can cue that up, Adam.
Pistol in your face. I'm gonna let some break out on your resting place. I just can't be satisfied. I just can't keep running.
Yeah, it's a really jumpy number, Muddy recorded that a few times. He actually recorded that in the Plantation. He recorded that on Aristocrat Records and recorded it on Chess. But he had a hit with it on Chess. And I think Bill, doesn't he just play on Chess? He just plays that himself and with a bass player. Is that right?
Yeah, but he does a version that's really good with Paul Butterfield and Fathers and Sons. That's really good.
That's
that
right.
Has, like a whole band has Duck Dunn on bass. Okay, and I think Otis Spann on piano. It's a really good version.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if anyone has a chance, they should play it. They should listen to it.
Yeah,
Find it.
That's interesting because Phil Chess handled a lot of the PR, right? Leonard Chess. Or do I have that wrong? Leonard Chess was the guy who was in the recording. He was like a technical guy. Do any of you guys know that for sure? Because I get those two guys mixed up. But
No.
What I was going to say is Muddy didn't add guys like Otis Spann. Everybody knows Otis Spann's piano player with Muddy's band, right? But it took like several records to become popular before Muddy could keep people to his band. By the time he was hitting his full stride and Willie Dixon was playing bass and writing songs for him, he had to push every time the Chess Brothers to let him bring somebody else in. Because once he had that hit doing I Can't Be Satisfied with the bass and him playing guitar, Phil Chess didn't want to mess with the formula. you know. But another thing Robert Gordon talks about is how Muddy was used to kind of working and cajoling Colonel Stovall down on the plantation. He got a lot of favors, got things done, invited Stovall over to his house when they were having parties, etc. And in a way, it seemed that Muddy was able to work the same way with the Chess Brothers. You know, just kind of cajole them. You know, I got to add this guy. This guy's great. We're playing in the clubs. You know, doing this stuff, and they would add him, and then of course, you know, we know what happened. Hey, so we're gonna. Yeah, go ahead.
Important about. I mean, one thing I think that's real important about this song is that he recorded it acoustically, and he had a hit acoustically, and then it crossed over into an amplified type of a tune, right? And that's about the same time that technology was presenting itself. So people started to use it one way or another just to be a little louder in these clubs, you know? I mean, so once that amplification started kicking in, I guess in the late 40s, right? You know, late 40s going into the early 50s, it started changing the tonality of all the instruments, right? So the slide guitar that he's playing on an amplifier has a different tonality than the slide he's playing on an acoustic guitar with a shotgun mic that they were recording. So I think that's also, they started, I don't know if they were really recording track by track at that point. I don't think they were. So
no, I think they recorded live. Yeah.
Right, one mic, like Sinatra as well. Just one, you could hear all the different instruments, but it was basically one microphone. Track recording didn't really happen until the 60s, right?
Yeah, right. Right, and so all these people who had moved up in the migration from Mississippi and the Delta up to Chicago, I mean, they still had a warm place in their hearts for this music. And once it was electric, then it was no longer like that. It was no longer old-fashioned. Didn't have that same sort of that downside to it. It sounded modern, and it also sounded like something they were familiar with, right? So, Adam, we're gonna move forward to a different kind of blues, and if we could cue up the next slide. We're gonna talk a little bit about and play an example of Piedmont blues. So in that map there, you can see the region that we're talking about with Piedmont blues. The style of Piedmont blues began with the older guitar styles and was also based on early banjo playing, string band, and ragtime. Blind Blake, Reverend Gary Davis, Blind Boy Fuller, Sonny Terry, and Barney McGee, they were among the Piedmont players. And they listened to popular music, string band music, marching bands, and ragtime. And they adapted these to a guitar style that usually played like a piano player might play. The thumb played the bass line, and the fingers outlined the chords. So somebody like Reverend Gary Davis moved from South Carolina to Harlem, and he preached in a storefront church for a time there. And he was really popular with the young guitarists in the 60s and 70s. He gave his guitar lessons for $5 an hour from his home in Jamaica and Queens. And Yorma always says, you know, he's always jokes that he didn't have the $5 to pay for the lesson at the time. So he actually never took any lessons from Davis. But that's the style, where it was kind of to emulate a piano player and to be able to play the melody with your fingers at the same time. I know there's Children of Zion album that my friend had. My friend Jim had this album. And on there, he played a marching band tune. I'm forgetting the name of it. But that's Piedmont style. Piedmont style was not the same sort of close regional thing that was happening in the Delta. So in our band, we've played Davis's songs, and we've played Candyman for years and years. Candyman's on one of the Hot Tuna albums that I think I snuck in the background over here. So Piedmont blues originated in an area that stretches from about Richmond, Virginia, down to Atlanta, Georgia. And Blind Blake was one of the biggest names to come out of the southeastern Piedmont tradition of blues. His name was Arthur Blake. He was also known as Blind Blake. He used his finger picks to create a crisp, clear sound as he punctuated his melodies with a powerful thumb, driving the rhythm underneath the blues and rags. So we're gonna play in this next clip. We're gonna play Police Dog Blues. Diddy Wah Diddy's another big tune of Blind Arthur Blake, and there's a number of them. West Coast blues. So here's Police Dog Blues.
All my life I've been a traveling man. All my life I've been a traveling man. Things don't have to do the best I can. Ship my trunks way down to Tennessee. Ship my trunks way down Tennessee. Hard to tell about a man like me. I met a girl, couldn't get her off my mind. I met a girl, couldn't get her off my mind. She passed me up saying she didn't like my kind.
Yeah. So Bill's playing a new bass there, right, Bill?
Yes, I am. Jack Cassidy bass, signature bass from Epiphone.
Wow.
I just wanted to mention before you you mentioned Yorma, Yorma Kalkinen for people who don't know Yorma.
Yeah.
Hot
Yeah.
tuna. Hot tuna.
Hot
tuna.
tuna.
Hot tuna.
This is a children friendly show. So just Hot Tuna. Just the two names, two name title. Yeah, like this album, Double Dose, and this one. Now this one he's got on this album. Yorma plays. He plays Candyman on this album, on this record. But yeah, as I was saying, Yorma from Hot Tuna and Jefferson Airplane, one of the people, one of the groups that we listen to, right? Especially Jefferson Airplane. Bill, big Jefferson Airplane fan.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
For years now.
Jack
Not to
Cassidy.
date myself,
Yeah.
but from way back. Yeah.
So so that style, you know, is really driven by the finger picks and playing, you know, that percussive sort of syncopated feel on it. And Reverend Gary used a thumb pick and a finger pick, and Arthur Blake used two finger picks. Now we're gonna move ahead. We're gonna play a little clip of Mississippi Fred McDowell tune. We have a slide with Fred McDowell. He was a favorite of the young folkies and rockers, and there he is with a young Bonnie Raitt, right? McDowell was born in Tennessee, but played the style common to the North Mississippi, and in particular, he was known for his slide guitar technique. He played guitar after moving at age 24 to Memphis in 1926 to find a change from hard field labor. He's trying to figure out how to get by without working the entire day, sun up to sundown in the field. He settled in Como, Mississippi, and made a living for the next 2 decades before being recorded by Alan Lomax, who again pops up here in the story of blues. He was recorded in 1959. Record producers picked up on his talent, and his subsequent commercial recording became popular. He coached Bonnie Raitt on slide playing, and he was flattered when the Rolling Stones recorded his song, You Gotta Move.
You You gotta move. Where the law is ready. You gotta move. You may be high, you may be low, you may be rich, child, you may be poor, and the Lord is You gotta move, child, you gotta move. The Lord is there. Lord is there. You gotta move.
Yeah, that's a National Steel guitar. It actually doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my friend Jim, who's very nice to let me play it. National Steels were pretty expensive. They were the guitars that were they were created to make the guitarist loud enough to be heard. They projected more, you know. And so before there were electric guitars, National Steels and Dobros were very popular for blues players that could afford to get them, because you could play into a room, really be heard, project yourself. And then electric guitars came along; it was no longer necessary. But it had already, like, a stamp was put on the sound. It's an amazing sound, right? You hear all those overtones coming out of the guitar. Nice job. The band, I think, sounded good there. All right, so we're gonna cue up another player, John Lee Williamson, Sunnyboy. He was Sunnyboy the first, and Sunnyboy was born in 1914, right around the same time, Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson. He died in 1948. John Lee Williamson's often regarded as a pioneer of the blues harp as a solo instrument. His original recordings are in the country blues style, but he soon demonstrated skill at making the harmonica a lead instrument for the blues and popularized it for the first time in a more urban blues setting. He has been called the father of the modern blues harp. He did not play through an amplifier. Williamson's harmonica style was a great influence on many post-war performers. Williamson first recorded in 1937 for Bluebird Records, and his first recording, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, became a blues standard. He was popular among black audiences throughout the southern United States and in Midwestern industrial cities such as Detroit and Chicago. His name was synonymous with the blues harmonica for the next decade. Later in his career, he was a mentor to many up-and-coming blues musicians who moved to Chicago, including Muddy Waters. So we're going to cue up this Good Morning Little Schoolgirl and check out Tom's harmonica work on this tune. Learning the John Lee Williamson stuff's not so easy, right? 1
two.
You know, when we cut away, Stephen pointed out there was a question about Alan Lomax being impresario. He was, you know, ethnomusicologist and spent his career recording folk music, I think is as far as we know. And, you know, it turns out as as stories come to light, the story of John Work and Alan Lomax is a little complicated. Sounds like they didn't get along with each other too well, and sounds like Alan didn't often give him credit. But this is something that only came to light, you know, recently. Alan Lomax was often thought of as the person who discovered Muddy Waters and others. You know, Tom, could you talk a little bit about John Lee Williamson and you know what he meant to blues?
Well, John Lee Williamson, as we were talking about earlier, he developed a harmonica solo style, very technical harmonica solo style that was like no other. So his influence on all of his licks and particular phrasing that he used was picked up by all the great players in the 50s, like Junior Wells, like Little Walter, are two good examples, right? Even though he never was an amplified player. A lot of people will credit George Harmonica Smith as the first guy to actually play through an amplifier. You know, they say that he was working at the Dixie Theater in Illinois, and he began to use an amplifier he salvaged from an old projector to amplify his harmonica playing on the street. So early busking with the latest technology. But then once the technology advanced a little bit more, someone like Little Walter, and we're going to move into that with Juke, really helped define that amplified style by overdriving a tube amp, right? Same thing with the guitars. By the overdriven aspect created this distortion in these overtones that hadn't been heard before.
Yeah, right. The guitars, especially with Clapton and the guys in the 60s, they were learning how to tweak the amp just right to get an overdriven sound, right? We're gonna play Juke. We're gonna cue up Juke, and maybe when we come back, you guys can talk a little bit about the blues in general, Mark, and then also a little bit about Little Walter, if you could. So we'll listen to, this is Juke, Little Walter's.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
So Tom, maybe you could talk a little bit about Little Walter. We've played several Little Walter tunes over the years.
Yeah, so Little Walter was one of the first people who would use a bullet microphone, which was usually like an old PA mic that would be used for taxi cabs and things like that. And he would cup his hands around the microphone to help shape the tonality overall, right? And get a real tight, overdriven sound. And that would also overdrive the element in the microphone that would then drive the amp, kind of like a pickup on a guitar can overdrive an amp, right? But a lot of people had problems with feedback, so that was a big issue, and it still is for a lot of harmonica players, trying to learn how to control that feedback, because you're playing a microphone through an amplifier that's made for a guitar, really, but you're playing a vocal mic through it or something like that. So it's an interesting kind of technology of bricolage, I would call it, if you want to get French about it. But it's a way that people use technology, existing technology, and change it into something different, something new, that created a new sound and a new paradigm.
Yeah. And then, Mark, I noticed on a number of the tunes, you're playing brushes, but on this tune, there's a bit more going on the drums, right? Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you approach playing the tunes that we're doing. And keep in mind, too, that we're doing Messing with the Kids being queued up next. And, you know, some of these tunes offer some opportunities for the way you think about approaching them as a jazz player.
Well, anytime you have acoustic guitar, basically, you want to try to use the brushes. That's a general thinking, you know. So when you go to electric, you can go to some different sounds. But you know, the thing about blues, it's because I really didn't like the blues. Well, I liked the blues, but I wasn't really into it until I was older. You know, like a lot of people, you know. But I was into jazz when I was a kid. And so I liked the blues. I just didn't know it. Then when you start getting into the blues, though, it's really, people like to say that, I don't know, the blues had a baby and they call it jazz or something. That's just, I think to me, that's academics sort of talking, you know. There's really no difference. They're all like one and the same. And so, because they're really improvisational music, you know, and they're really about being able to express yourself. And that's what's really so cool about blues and jazz in the African American tradition is really about, you know, being self-expression. And so that's what really attracts me to the music. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do, but it's all creative. You know, it's just comes out of expressing yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna cue up the. Go ahead, Bill. We're gonna cue up the a couple of electric tunes, right? And I know you wanted to add some stuff. Some stuff to the discussion about electric blues.
Well, yeah, we actually started off playing electric blues. We did a lot of like covers of covers, like maybe a cover of like the Taj Mahal Clapton tune, who were covering famous people like Muddy Waters. And we did a lot of Johnny Winter, you know, Hot Tuna Electric. And, you know, this is one of the things that we were doing. We've played a lot of tunes that we no longer play or haven't or maybe will in the future. But the electric thing is where we really started. And for me, going back in sort of to the roots of acoustic is great because, for one thing, the volume's lower and it's more relaxed. You know, at least we want it that way. So that's like a great thing. You know, I also want to talk about some of the gigs that we did electrically. Like we started out, what was it, at the Charleston in Brooklyn, right? And then we were lucky enough to get jobs in Manhattan, a place called the Rec Room. And we got to play there for 2 years. Sometimes it was all Friday night. Sometimes it was Saturday night. Sometimes it was both. But that was really where we started getting, you know, tight and our act together by playing all these different types of tunes.
Bill, that was like the Beatles going to Germany. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we played for hours in the Rec Room, right? The Rec Room, the Rec Room was the gaslight.
Hamburg, right?
Yeah,
They were in
That's what
Hamburg.
yeah,
Yeah.
That was our
yeah.
Hamburg.
Well, yeah,
Our
that's right.
Hamburg.
The Rec Room was the Gaslight that Hendrix and Bob Dylan used to play in. Of course, several years before us. But we got to jam with Hubert Sumlin, okay, who was it play with
Came
Howlin'
to the
Wolf
Rec
and
Room.
Muddy, and yeah, and he signed your
It's a record?
guitar, and that was great. We did Killing Floor, yeah, the Rec Room. That was good, and so we did like all sorts of the Cape May Jazz Festival. We did Balloon Fest in Connecticut. We did Harley Davidson parties. We played out in Long Island. Remember Chesterfield's and Veranda. In
Yeah.
New Jersey's Scotland Yard. So most of this was all electric. And we would throw in like a few acoustics here and there, but it's good that we're starting to sort of like move to a different area by playing, these acoustic blues tunes. It's a
Yeah,
wonderful
they're kinda
thing.
different stuff to well, so enough of the acoustic stuff, because this is totally electric. This next thing that we have queued up is Messing with the Kid. This is live in front of BB King's restaurant, because they never booked us at BB King's, man. But they did book us with a gas generator for the half marathon. So that's where this is from.
Don't mess around, though, you are. We're gonna take the kid's car and drive around town. Tell everybody, man, you trying to put this kid down. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, look at what you did. You can call it what you want. I call it messing with the kid. Well, you tell me you love me, baby. You tell me a lie. I love you, baby, until the day I die. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, look at what you did, Bill. You can call it what you want, and I call it messing with the. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Messing with the kid. All right, Tom Brumley on the harmonica. Damn.
Yeah.
It's so much
Yeah, we
fun
just
doing that
want-
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
want to mention that Dan, a dearly departed friend, was a front man for a while. Actually, for a long time, right? He started out playing drums in the band, but then he had to leave. So that's when Mark came in. And, we did a lot of gigs also with piano players, Yo Cano. But we missed Dan. He was also our songsmith when we did originals, which were based on, electric blues and acoustic blues. Which was a great thing. We really miss him.
Yeah. It's great, like Tom blows a couple of really great choruses, and Dan's just like, "Oh, another one, man. We got to have a third." It's great. Nice to see Dan in live performance like that. So that's not acoustic, right, Bill? That's electric.
Yes, that's electric.
Yeah,
And that's what we did a lot of. Hey, things don't always stay the same. So now we're doing some acoustic, which is a wonderful thing, like I mentioned before.
Yeah,
That song
it's nice to
has
hear
that
Mark
Junior
wailing.
Wells. Yeah, that song has that Junior Wells energy. You know what I mean? And sometimes people would call him, like the James Brown of the blues, and he had that kind of intensity and that passion, that energy. He would just get out there and let it flow like that. So we're lucky to be able to have that in our lives.
Yeah,
True.
I
Yeah.
got to hear
You know-
Junior Wells live, with Buddy Guy. There's a small club in East Side Manhattan, which is really a treat. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
Wore this big hat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He had a
yeah,
pretty
no.
successful career. And from what I know, Junior Wells was very helpful to other guys in the blues, like the musician community. You know, he was generous in a way, like helping guys out when they needed, medical care, things like that. Hey, Tom, do you want to just, we'll cue up that there's a great video here. We got a great promo spot, Tom Brumley and the Tube Amplifier Collection. Maybe we should go to that, and then, Tom, you could tell us a little bit about amplification.
Look at this gorgeous amp. Oh my God. All original, beautiful, all original American-made tubes. Here we go. Gonna play some raging harp through it. Ready?
All right.
Well, we come back.
Yeah, well,
What happened?
I just wanted to add that for anyone out there, the blues. I guess one description of the blues might be like you're seeing your lover. Could be your girlfriend or wife, whatever. Leaving on the train and she's not coming back. So that's kind of like the blues. And then of course the blues is also if she does come back and she catches it with another woman.
That's
Right.
definitely blues.
So, Tom, tell us a little bit about amps.
More about amps. Okay, so amplification and that technology changed the tonality and the sound of the harmonica, and also allowed the players to have more of a presence, push more air in that room, and get a bigger sound. Right. So over the years, I've collected all these Premier tube amps that were made right here by a Multivox Corporation in New York City, first on 6th Ave, and then later moved in to Williamsburg. But that's what that amp was about. I sell them sometimes on eBay. But now we're playing through it. Now I'm playing through a battery-powered amp, and that sounds a little bit different. I don't know if it's quite as good as the tube amp. That's a bigger argument that we could get in later. I don't want to waste your time with that right now.
Yeah. I just want to point out to everybody at home that when Tom came to the gigs, we all saw him rolling that amplifier in, man. We knew we were in for it, His amplifier came up to about chest level with a couple of little, rollers on the bottom, man. It was a huge, What was that thing? That was a Fender 4.8 or 410? Yeah, man.
A 59 Fender concert. 59 Fender concert with 410. Billy knows.
So we'll see it.
Yeah.
We're gonna hear you pushing the air, man. And the last piece we're gonna share is a piece called "Got My Mojo Working," and there's a lot of air being pushed here. Also, we're giving a shout out again to Dan. He's singing there up. This was in a place in Long Island City, and we're doing Muddy Waters' classic closing tune was called "Got My Mojo Working."
I got my mojo working, but it just don't work on you. I got my mojo working, but it just don't work on you. I love you so bad, don't know what to do. I got my mojo working, give me my mojo hand. Yeah.
So
Hey,
we
I had
we
hair. Yeah,
Young guys.
I had hair.
yeah. So when was that? That was around 2002, Bill,
Yeah.
and Long Island City.
Might have been a little bit after that. A little bit after that. Maybe
Well,
about
Not
then,
too much.
2005.
Philly
No,
Smokeout,
2005.
right?
I don't think.
I think it was
Yeah.
Philly
Yeah.
Smokeout,
Philly
yeah.
Smoker.
All right. A little dispute, man. We'll have to settle that later. Okay. Well, thanks for having us, Stephen.
Oh, this is great. I
thank
have to tell you, you have a big fan club that's been following here on the chat. I've been watching it. Tell us a little bit how you guys got together. How did the band form? When did you start playing together?
Well,
How'd that all happen?
So, go ahead, Bill.
yeah, well, first, actually, it was Ken and Dan, who you saw in the last couple of videos. And like for me, I played in a lot of different bands, all kinds of music. And when they mentioned this to me, I jumped on it because I hadn't played in a full-scale blues band before. But anyway, it started off with Ken, Dan, and myself, and then we ran into Tom in a jam session. And then we wound up with Yo Cano on piano, who we had worked with quite a bit doing other projects. So that was pretty much the band in the beginning.
When was that?
And there was
When
like-
was that?
that was 1996. And
Yeah.
then we went a few years with that, and then Dan had to leave the band for a little while for professional reasons, personal reasons, and we wound up with Mark, who you see on the screen there, playing drums. And then after a while, Yo had to leave, had to go back to Japan, and we just stayed as like a five-piece band for many years after that. But we started, 1996, and I guess it's about 24 years now, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, about
Yeah.
24 years that
Mhm.
we've been
That's
together.
about right.
Yeah, we've done hundreds of gigs, and we've had people sit in with us. Like for instance, when Yo couldn't make it, we had someone named Frank Antico show up. Sometimes Mark, who had a young daughter and was very busy teaching, we'd have a different drummer, like Kenny's cousin Dennis, and a person named Towner. So there were different people sat in with us over the years.
David Cohn, too.
It's been a lot of fun.
David Cohn.
Oh yeah, David Cohn, yeah, on a bunch of gigs, sure. We had a lot of fun. I remember one gig that we did where we was at a Cajun restaurant, and there was like this bald-headed fellow who came in, and I said, "Wow, he looks familiar." All of a sudden, Mark, who's playing next to me, says, "That's Roy Haynes." And I remember thinking to myself, Roy Haynes, who played with was it Charlie Parker, Charles Mingus, right, and Thelonious Monk, and he's going to listen to us play. So then, that was and so. That was an interesting little tidbit, but we've played with a lot of people and have had a lot of fun over the years. But it's been about 24 years. Anyone else?
I'm kind of
Well, we
curious.
did a couple.
Go ahead.
No, so we did the first record we did. I was on that first record, and I still think of the when we were doing that. And we took the picture out in my in my backyard by the garage. I like that record a lot. It's really raw. It's not as polished as I wasn't on the second record, but it is a good record for what it is in and of itself. Had a good time doing that, and it's a couple of records that the band's got put out there that are really a nice catalog.
Yeah, that was the Pro Tools incident when Pro Tools, which is a technical thing for recording, that had just come out at that point. And, we were losing files left and right, I remember, for that recording. But, nevertheless, it was fun. That was 2001.
Yeah, 2001, and then 2005 is we did the second album. The second album.
2006.
Yeah. 2006.
Second album. Right. Yeah.
We recorded it in 2005, summer of 2005, because I think the family went to Norway, and I was able to hang out with you
That's
guys
right.
and write songs,
I was on
record, right?
sabbatical. I was on
Yeah.
sabbatical. We all
Right.
came to my place, and we spent like the whole summer together working on that.
Yep.
Danny
Yep,
would go
yep.
out on the deck and have a cigarette. You know, we had a lot of fun. That's how we put all those songs together. And
I
we've got
also want to ask
a
you,
new CD
For,
coming out, right?
for
I want to
anyone
ask
out
you-
there,
go ahead, Bill, go
oh
ahead.
no, for anyone out there, you could hear us on Spotify. Our second CD, you could find it on there, or Apple Music, that sort of thing. If you want to listen to us play originals, which is based upon a lot of the things that you just heard.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing I wanted to ask you guys. I'm just curious, and Mark kind of talked about it a little bit, but how did you find the blues, or did the blues find you? I mean, how did this become where you live and make music? And do you do other
Well,
sorts of stuff? I'm curious. It's a whole other thing about the interaction of jazz and blues, but just in general, why is this home for you?
Because for me, when I was growing up, when I was very young, I listened to the Beatles, but the next thing I discovered was the blues. And I know I talked about this before. There's an album of Clapton, Page, and Beck called Guitar Boogie, which was a collection of their early things before they were with the Yardbirds or had made any sort of name for themselves. They were studio musicians, and Clapton played a song called Tribute to Elmore, which was a title of a record that he released before he became famous at all. And I really turned on to that sound, and as part of what Tom talked about, the sound of his guitar was raw, and it was just a little bit of overdriven sound through the amplifier. And it was something that the Beatles didn't do, and I discovered that. My cousins had a recording of it one summer. I remember listening to it, and that and other blues stuff, Yorma's acoustic guitar blues and stuff was just really just clicked with me, when I was a teenager. And I don't know, what about you guys?
Well, for me, I was listening to bands like Cream and Led Zeppelin in the late '60s, early '70s, and somebody said, "Well, you should listen to what they listen to," and I was like, "Okay." And so I was able to get a Muddy Waters album. I found BB King, and that was it for me. But in terms of like being a fan was one thing. I liked it, but I didn't really get to play like bona fide blues until I joined this band. I mean, I did a lot of other types of music, whether it was like R&B, rock, top 40, power trios, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The blues came to me, pretty early on, but it was a result of basically, to be honest, the English musicians, like the Stones also.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen, another important thing I think you guys might agree is that when band together, Eric Clapton had put out an album called From the Cradle just like a year before, and a couple of years earlier had put out his live MTV acoustic thing, Unplugged. And I think we all turned on to that again as a kind of a revival. I don't know. Do you guys see it that way too? I think we really listened to it. Dan and I really turned on to that Cradle album. Yeah.
There was a huge blues revival in the '80s, and a lot of it I think had to do with Stevie Ray Vaughan and his huge kind of international influence in the blues, right? And that kind of bled over into everything else. And then you had the Blues Brothers at the same time. You had the From the Cradle album coming out. So blues was very popular at that time, right? And I think actually when Stevie Ray passed, it created this vacuum. And I don't think the blues is ever 100% recovered. I'm not saying he's just the one person, but when I went to see him, I saw him with Albert King and BB King. They opened up for him. So I went to see Stevie Ray, but I really left the show thinking, my God, BB King, the dynamics, just the way he controlled the band and the dynamics he had was just so impressive. Albert King as well. And Stevie Ray was great, but it was a lot louder. It was a big, loud, amplified sound. So that left a big impression on me. And and then from, I mean, but they were influenced by older players, older American players. But I listened to Led Zeppelin when I started thinking Gibson. So I went back and started listening to that music. And the first time I heard Little Walter playing the harmonica on a Muddy Waters recording, it just kind of reached into me and never went away.
Yeah.
Lucky us.
Right.
Mark?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm looking at my computer; it's about to die, so I might have to get some help here. But unbelievable. I didn't realize, we teach on these things all day long, and for the most part, I leave it plugged in. Like I'm also teaching remote. Me, Kenny, and I are teachers. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Anyway, the blues is folkloric music, and I started as a jazz, learning to love jazz because through the drums. So, but the blues is really the jazz. It's really, as I was saying before, they're one and the same. There really isn't any real difference. It's more academic, the differentiation. So, but yeah, I really started playing the blues with these guys, and I had played some blues before when I was much younger, but I think when I was older and started playing the blues, I had a much different appreciation for it, and how it's a roots music, and it's funny because people always talk about the greatest contribution of the United States to culture is the jazz, which was exported to everywhere all over the world. But to me, it's the blues too. It's like the same thing. Everybody plays the blues. It's just not, and people, it's just not as, I don't know what the word for it is expressed that way, but the blues is also music. People play it all over the world. Everybody plays the blues because it's roots music. So there's, you could say the blues is a contribution too, as an export from the United States, but it comes out of African-American experience. And it's because of that, struggle and everything that expresses behind it all, and being able to express joy at the same time that it's really comes from such a difficult place that it transmits all over the world. And blues and jazz have that root. And so that's, there really isn't any difference, but it's just a great music that really touches people's hearts, it's all over the world.
Yeah, well, all forms of music has some blues. I mean, we've played Johnny Cash tunes at a 145, and then you have anything from funk, James Brown, all the way through to even today. The blues it's in there. Sometimes it isn't as like in your face, but the inspiration is there for like just about every music there is. Including jazz.
Bending those thirds and bending the fifths and the thirds, those blue notes and the sevenths, that stuff is just buried in American music now, isn't it? Yeah.
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 Buried in a lot, yeah.
All right, guys, we probably should wind this up. This is great. And while this was happening, I have to tell you, there was a lot of chat on the chat about the fact that this really needs to live on because it's just so interesting. And we really appreciate putting the time and energy in and pulling this all together. It's really fascinating. It really is.
We hope we can raise a few more funds for the scholarship. We hope it's successful tonight too. Right, we're part of the Cabaret.
So let's put that. Let's put that slide back up, folks. So you can donate. Boy, Ken's right on it. So you can do it through our website. You can do it through PayPal. You can call the office. You can send a check. All these different ways that you can contribute. And again, folks, this goes directly right into the coffers for the scholarship fund for high school students in Nassau who are going on to study music. So any contribution you can give are very much appreciated. And it's a really important cause. So guys, again, thank you so much. This was really extraordinary for us. And
thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen.
I hope we can do more. We'll have to figure out. There's so many questions I have now that I want to ask, But anyway, we'll do that again. But thank you again. Thank you for being part of our musical life in Long Island and for being our musical life. And you've been at Shelter Rock. And, I know a lot of our members follow you around and are your groupies as they should be. And so just appreciate having this connection with you again. So here we go. Mojo, right?
I got my mojo working, but it just don't work on you.